eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
Yo, fancy seeing you guys here. Feel like it was not that long ago. All of you weirdos were here and we were having a good time. Welcome back. We're doing part 2 today. Part 2 of Stephen Greer's 2001 whistleblower testimony. I'm excited to finish it off. This is something that I've been wanting to go over for a while now because, you know, we were saying the other day on Sunday that this is like church. Well, this, you know, looking at this older stuff, this is like Bible study. Okay, it's good to go back, take a look at things that we, you know, a lot of us have probably already seen before, but when you look at it with the eyes of another maybe 5, 10, 20 years of knowledge, sometimes you pick up on things that you maybe didn't notice before. And that's why I think it's good to go back and look at this kind of stuff. So I'm excited. Actually, can I get you guys to put a 333 in the chat if you were here for the stream last night / this morning, depending on where you are? 333 in the chat. And while the stream was pending, Beta Alifton, Tiger Lily, and TK Mills, welcome guys, our latest weirdos. Can we get some love hearts in the chat for those? And make sure if you guys are here in the chat, because they were a while ago, make sure you check out the members only content. A whole lot of 333. God damn. You guys are the real ones. Morning and night. Just straight up weirdos. I love it. I love it. And Observer 9000 has already gifted a membership. Thank you very much, Observer. If you're the lucky person to receive that, make sure you say thank you. Some love hearts for them. And also, well, actually, there's a couple of quick things I need to say. First of all, if you don't know, if you need to be able to, if you want to be able to receive a gifted membership, you have to have it turned on. So click the 3 dots in your chat, enable it. Also, last night I said after today's stream, we're going to be watching a movie. We spun the wheel and it landed on Arrival. I went straight down to Blockbuster. Sold out. Sold out of VHS tapes. Went to Video Easy. Sold out. I even went to Civic Video. Okay, and if you're from Australia, you know that's when you're scraping the barrel to try and find a film when you go to Civic Video. And I just cannot find a legal VHS copy of Arrival for us to watch. Very strange. I don't know why. So I have a couple of options for you guys. We can spin the wheel again with what was left. We can... Okay, or I kind of have this thing where I want to watch The Hunger Games. So we can either spin the wheel with what was left, we can watch The Hunger Games, or we can spin the wheel with The Hunger Games on it. You guys let me know, and we'll do that after. We'll do that at the end of the stream with whatever we decide. But let me know what you guys think. You guys still have video stores in Adelaide? Absolutely. Yep. I would never, you know, you wouldn't download a car. You know what I'm saying? So of course, I went to Blockbuster and to see what they had for rent for the week. 7 weeklies for $10. Josh, I can send you the Arrival movie file. I mean VHS by mail. Dan, I don't know if the mail would arrive in time for after the stream, but possibly. Some people saying Hunger Games. The wheel just disappoints. Do a vote. We could possibly do a vote, maybe at the end of the stream. That's actually a good idea. Maybe we'll do a poll at the end of the stream with those options. I think that sounds like a good way to do it. Wait, really? Video stores? Of course, Sean. Of course. Do you think I would download a car? Would you download a car? Of course not. Of course you wouldn't. This is all legal and above board here. The cookie with $5 was good, y'all. Welcome, my man. Thank you for the support. Always chucking in a little $5. Hope you're doing well. Hope P-Shaw's doing well. I reckon let's get straight into it, guys. Actually, sorry. One more announcement very quickly. After today's stream, I might not be live again for a few days. Maybe on Thursday, potentially. but definitely not tonight. Definitely not tomorrow. There might be a video that comes out in, or maybe two, a video or two perhaps in the next couple of days. Don't hold me to it. But there will be a stream maybe on Thursday because I just got a bunch of shit I need to do, including trying to finish off this merch stuff. But also, as I mentioned yesterday, I'm going to be speaking this Friday night at Astro SA, which is an event here. I'm going to be telling them all about UFOs. Yeah, I'm going to make sure no one leaves that room thinking that UFOs do not exist. I'm going to make sure of it. So I got to prepare for that. Got a few things on the cards, but don't worry. Nothing's stopping. This is all happening behind the scenes. Josh, are you going to record the talk you're giving? Would love to see it. I think Astro might be doing some form of recording. I considered recording it myself. But if I want to record it myself, I'd want to make sure I'd have to go buy like one of those wireless lapel mics because I don't want to record it and have like echoey, you know, I don't want the audio to sound like the UAP press conference earlier this year. Okay. You know, like that's just ridiculous. I'm not going to upload something that just sounds like crap. But that means I'd have to go buy a wireless lapel mic, which, yeah, I don't know. It could be cool. It would be cool to put up. But in a way, like I know there's going to be people going there who watch the channel. And in a way, I kind of think like it could be cool just to have like a little exclusive thing that's like just for, you know, just a little in-person exclusive. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe there'll be some shorts of it. See what happens. With all that said, Hubert McMillan's thrown in $8 and says, yeah, Josh, take a break, my bro. Thank you, mate. I appreciate the support. Yeah, that's right. I got to take a little bit of time to myself to recharge as well, because I think that's when the creativity takes off. You know, you got to rest, recharge, and then we come back hot and heavy. You know what I'm saying? You're going to wake some people up, but it's consensual because they signed up for it. Exactly. Exactly. Are you telling me you're a human? No, I never said that. I never said that. Don't assume. Have I seen Sphere? No, I haven't, but that's actually very relevant to something that I'm potentially going to be talking about in a video in the next couple of days. Yeah. All right, guys, let's hook into it. We finished up with Carl Wolf last night telling us that there are bases on the moon and that he saw the photos of them. Trim the devil brows. I'm working on it, sir. I'll do it on my days off. I promise. And let's pick up right where we left off. We've got about another 50 minutes of testimony to get through. Here we go.
Thank you, Carl. Good morning, everyone. My name is Donna Hare, and I worked at Philco Ford Aerospace from 1967 to 1981. During that time, I was a design illustrator, draftsman. I did the launch slides and landing slides, and also projection plotting boards, lunar maps for NASA. We were a contractor, but most of the time I worked on site, excuse me, in Building 8. I had the opportunity to do extra work during downtime, which was between missions, and I walked into a photo lab, which was the NASA lab across the hallway. I had a secret clearance, which is not that high, but I was able to go into restricted areas, which this was. At the time, I was talking to one of the techs in there, and he drew my attention to a photograph, a NASA photograph. It had a dot on it, and I said, what is that? Well, he drew my attention to it, and I said, is that a dot on the emulsion? And he said, and he's smiling, and he has his hands crossed, and he said, round dots on the emulsion don't leave round shadows on the ground. And this was an aerial photograph of the Earth, I'm assuming the Earth because it had pine trees on it, and the shadows of the craft or whatever it was were in the same angle as the trees. And by its very nature, UFO, and I wanted to clarify that to a gentleman that was talking to me, means unidentified. So I did not know what this was, but I realized at this point that it's very secret, that it was kept secret, because I asked him, what are you going to do with this piece of information? And he said, we always airbrush these out before we sell them to the public. So they're pesky little creatures appearing on this photograph they wanted to get rid of. After that, I decided I would ask questions to other people that work there. And I found that I had to ask them away from the site and not on site. A guard told me that he was asked to burn some photographs and not to look at them. And there was another guard guarding him who was in green fatigues watching him burn the photographs. And he said he was too tempted. He looked at one, and it was a picture of a UFO. And he was very descriptive. I can go into that later with anyone. He immediately was hit in the head, and he had a big gash in his forehead. He was knocked out, and he's terrified, so he would have to be protected. Another incident, I knew someone in quarantine with the Apollo astronauts. He told me that the Apollo astronauts saw craft on the moon when we landed, and that is what he told me. And he also was afraid. He said that the astronauts are told to keep this quiet. They're not allowed to talk about it.
Oh, that probably explains why they look like hostages in the Apollo conference. Because they literally were. Like, if this is true, that, like, makes perfect sense. They were told, they saw something wild, something ontologically shocking, reality breaking. Were told to keep quiet. And that's why when you watch the Apollo 11 press conference, they literally look like they have guns to their heads being told to smile and wave. And also what she's saying, like, that and okay, obviously, let me just address the elephant in the room. The fact that her name is Donna Hare is just crazy. Like, you can't make that up. You literally can't make that up after last night's stream. We couldn't have started off in a more typical way. But anyway, the fact that she's saying that these things were like a pest, there was that many of them that they had to airbrush them out. This again speaks to what I've been talking about in the last couple of days, which is obviously Patrick Jackson's sphere network theory, and that they had this data and the photos and the scans of them in the 50s, according to this paper that's currently under peer review. Like, it all actually lines up, that there is, you know, beyond our atmosphere or in and around it, it is literally teeming with something. I don't want to say life because, I mean, who knows what they are? Who knows if they're craft, if they're actual beings that, like, can manifest and move around in space, like some kind of, you know, conscious aerial plasma being. Who knows? But what she's saying lines up with everything we've been hearing about in the last couple of days, which is super interesting. And again, this is exactly why it's awesome to come back and look at this stuff, because before that paper that's kind of come out recently, and, you know, Patrick Jackson's book isn't that old either. If we'd have watched this a year ago, 2 years ago, probably wouldn't be making these connections.
So I do want to let you know that I worked out there for a number of years, and I ran into this. So it's not something everyone knows that works out there for a long time. My boss didn't know about it. Some people that sat right next to me didn't know about it. It's very strange, because I don't know how they can do it, but they can let some people know about it and then others not. I'm willing to testify before Congress that what I'm saying is true, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Code Red Jew Girl, welcome, you little freak. Thank you for the support. Welcome to the Members Club. Make sure you check out the members' content and come and hang out in Discord as well. Discord is active 24/7. Doesn't matter what part of the world you're from. There's always someone in there. It's always good morning, and there's plenty of different channels to appeal to whatever your interests may be.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the press. My name is Larry Warren. 20 years ago, in 1980, I was a security specialist assigned to RAF Bentwaters, Woodbridge, NATO Air Force facilities in Suffolk, East Anglia. I had a secret security clearance. I guarded our backline nuclear weapons that were stored there at the time, without the knowledge of the people of Great Britain. I went through its portion of a 3-night UFO event where objects made incursions over our WSA, fired pencil-thin beams of light into them, and adversely affected the ordnance, possibly. These objects were on the ground on 2 different nights. Potentially, there was another life form seen. This is an unpopular truth. These events were of extreme defense significance to not only Her Majesty's government, but this government as well, and they are still shrouded in secrecy. They are very complex, they are very vast. This is more about a human rights issue than just a UFO issue. 20 years ago, this room would be empty. I see a turn in history. This is history in motion, but unfortunately it's history with a security classification. I would be more than honored to swear under oath that I experienced what I did, I saw what I saw. These events produced not only, after numerous denials by this government, a memo by Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt, our deputy base commander, which reads like science fiction. It also produced, years later, an on-site audio tape he made as these objects performed their feats and did what they did and violated airspace. These events are of extreme defense significance. I hope my brothers in arms that went through these events will be given immunity at some point and be able to join us here. It is an honor to share the stage with all of these people. And I think for all of our children, my son Dennis, God bless you, son, we can change the world. You're heroes for being here also, and I will testify in front of Congress if asked to. God bless. Thank you.
What's interesting about that one is something I've sort of mentioned this before on the channel, where he's sort of addressing the room saying, you know, the fact that there's this many people here shows that there is like a shift and that, you know, disclosure is coming, this stuff is coming out, etc. This is in 2001, by the way, May the 9th in 2001. I feel like, again, this is just my own theory, I feel like a lot of the chaos and conflict and friction, I think friction is probably the best word, a lot of the friction in society comes from the fact that people are awakening to this stuff. And, you know, we are, like, I feel like we consciously evolve and we technologically evolve, and they're supposed to stay sort of like in balance. You know, at one point the tech might get a bit of ahead, but you got to kind of catch up, and, you know, it kind of stays like this as you evolve. It's like the tech has been just like basically hard stuck around, you know, let's just say like the 90s, for example. Because it does kind of feel like shit really hasn't, let's say from 2000, when this happened, it feels like from 2000, things haven't really changed much. There was that great video if saying how, like, you know, the 90s had a very distinct vibe, a distinct feel, a distinct era. Same as the 80s, same as the 70s, same as the 60s. Like, they're very iconic decades with like music, art, styles, themes, like cultural themes. But like after 2000, it's just kind of like this weird blur of like, are we stuck in time? Like, what the hell is going on here? And it's like, I feel like a lot of the friction in the world today is because something is being suppressed technologically, but the consciousness is going up, and it's creating this like major imbalance. And that imbalance is like a boiling pot that is going to like pop until if it doesn't come into balance. And what pop means, I don't really know, but I think that's the feeling of like that sort of tense friction sort of feeling that I think almost everyone can feel, right? That's just my own theory. Free the tech? Absolutely. Toxic Fart put in $5 and said, I think the moon landing videos have been spliced with footages because the real footage had UFOs in them. Armstrong said they were on the craters. Do you have any links to him saying that? Because I have heard them saying that, but like, surely that's not on record. I've heard rumors of them saying stuff like that, but is that on record? I would love to see it if it is. My personal opinion is that we probably have been to the moon. Whether we did it in the late 60s and early 70s, I don't know. But I feel like we've definitely been there by now, probably maybe even have a presence there in some way. But the footage was essentially like a Psy-Op. The footage was just recorded to sell it to the public and get the public on board with just supporting the program, maybe supporting the funding, and also supporting a government and military that probably people didn't realize at the time now had a lot of Nazis in it, or has a lot of Nazis in it. Because if you think about that, like after the war, when it's like you're going through the war, oh my God, evil Nazis, the villain, the bad people, they're killing us. We need to destroy them. And then like imagine if like sort of 10 years later you find out like, oh yeah, they all work in your government now. They're in your science. They run the space program as well. I feel like people would have kind of been like, wait, what? Like, hang on, wait. Why? You mean thousands of them are here and are like in positions of power? Like it would make sense that like this, to me, like the moon missions were almost like a perfect way to just kind of like, forget about that. Look how great this is. Woohoo, go us. Do you know what I mean? It got the public on board and to kind of forget all that. Again, these are just my own theories. Don't repeat this as fact. Do your own research. 353 Farm says, I'm a member, but I didn't join during a live, so I didn't get called a weirdo. So sad. Well, 353 Farm, you little freak. Welcome. And I just lost my train of thought. I was gonna go somewhere with that. You must have been gifted a membership. Yeah, you must have been gifted a membership when you weren't here. There was something I wanted to add to that, but I can't remember what it was. But welcome. Thanks for being here. Make sure you check out the members only content.
Hi, my name is George Filer III. The reason I'm here is because George Filer V is in the hangar and will be born on Friday. And I'm a retired intelligence officer and flyer with almost 5,000 hours, and I didn't believe in UFOs until London Control called us in the winter of 1962 and asked us, would we chase one? And we said, sure. So we let down from 30,000 feet to 1,000 feet where the UFO was hovering, and we went into a steep dive and actually exceeded the red line of the aircraft. So it's kind of dangerous chasing UFOs.
Andy, welcome.
In case I was able to get the UFO on the aircraft radar at about 40 miles, and we could see a light out in the distance, and as we closed, we kept on picking up this radar return. The point I'm mentioning that the radar return was very distinct and solid, indicating it was some kind of a metallic object. We got about a mile from the UFO, and it kind of lit up in the sky and went off into space, very similar to what the shuttle looks like when it takes off.
3535 bought his membership while I wasn't live. Right. Welcome. I appreciate the support, man. Thank you very much. Make sure you get in Discord. Come and hang out. Come join the conversation. Can we get some love hearts in the chat, please?
Later on, I was working in intelligence in Vietnam. I briefed General Brown about UFOs when I was in 21st Air Force in McGuire Air Force Base. I briefed General Glau about a UFO over Tehran, Iran in 1976. The two F-4s from the Iranian Air Force had taken off and tried to intercept the UFO. And when they turned on their fire control systems, they immediately went on. All the electrical systems went out. The planes had to return to base. This was particularly significant because it was also picked up on satellites. In 1978, on January 18th, I was going into the base. Every morning I did the briefing to the general staff, and I noticed that there are some lights off in the distance at the end of the runway there. And when I got into the command post, the senior master sergeant in charge said that there had been UFOs in the pattern all night. They're on radar. The tower had seen them. They got in aircraft reports and so on. And that one had landed or crashed at Fort Dix. Fort Dix and McGuire are right together.
Don't do it. Don't do it. I know what's coming.
And this is kind of like the Roswell of the East. But in any case, an alien had come off the craft and had been shot by a military policeman and apparently was wounded and was heading for McGuire. So for whatever reason, the aliens liked the Air Force better than the Army, perhaps because they're shooting at them. But in any case, our security police went out there and found him on the end of the runway dead. And they asked me to brief the general staff, General Tom Sadler, and at the 8 o'clock stand-up briefing. And I said, I don't think I want to do this. You know, the general doesn't have a good sense of humor, and I'm not sure I believe this. So I did some checking, called the 438th Command Post, and everybody had pretty much the same story. And at 8 o'clock that morning, just before I went on, was going to brief this, and I was very worried about it. They said, don't brief it, that it's too hot, so to speak. That's pretty much my story, and I'm prepared to tell the story in front of Congress, and it is the truth. Now, because of this, I've stayed interested in UFOs, and I'm the Eastern Director of the Mutual UFO Network. And between the National Reporting Center and Peter Davenport and the MUFON, we get 100 reports a week on average of people from all over the United States that see these things regularly. And if you start checking, they're out there and they're low, and people are seeing them all the time. And these are highly qualified people, all of whom essentially give us the reports by email. Thank you.
Another interesting one, just quickly, Rambro, my man, has gifted a membership, and it went to Jay Talman. So, Jay, make sure you say thank you, mate, and welcome. Very generous of you, Rambro. Appreciate that, mate. What he's saying there, he said that that sort of alien encounter thing, 1978, that's 1 year before Phil Schneider's alien encounter. I mean, that happened underground, which is a little bit different, but you know, it's obvious. I think it's very plausible that, like, we could be dealing with so many different things here. I feel like that is very plausible. But I also think what is not a bad theory. I mean, I've said it before. I think that there is non-human intelligences living underground. I know it's a super, some people say that's like super tinfoil hat. You're crazy. You know, hey, I'm just basing that off stuff that I've researched. That seems to make the most sense. But I also think, let's just say they are underground in some way, whether you want to call it like hollow earth or they live in cave systems or whatever. I don't know. But they could be underneath, and these things, this sphere network, these things that are parked in our atmosphere, according to the information we're finding out, could be like their monitoring system, right? If they're underneath, it would make sense that they monitor what's on top with some kind of like downward facing system, right? I've heard theories that, well, okay, so this is why I suggested watching Hunger Games, because I've sort of had this theory, I kind of like got this theory in my head a while ago, and it was really complicated, and, you know, call it a download or whatever. I've been thinking about it for a long time, and it's sort of, I found it hard to kind of unpack, but I think I'm sort of coming around to like what I'm thinking. And that is that I feel like as a single human, and especially like most people haven't left their, you know, a lot of people haven't left their city. Right? Some people have gone overseas once or twice. Maybe, you know, they've gone to London or they've gone to like one city, right? But I feel like until you travel, and I'm talking about like, you know, travel, go backpacking, go to Guatemala, go to like random, like, you know, more third world countries, go hiking, go, like once you've done that on like a decent scale, only then do you actually start to get a true perspective on how big and vast the world is. Like, it is huge, okay? And so much of it is not inhabited by like human beings with cities, right? The world is massive, and there are so many people in it, and there is still so much room for more. And it makes me, and then if we lean into the idea that, you know, the past and future doesn't really exist, it's just a concept, like the only ever time to exist is the present moment, right? And then you've got these, you know, we've got the pyramids, Machu Picchu. You've got all of these kind of relics that kind of show that some kind of civilization that seems to be pretty advanced was living here on the surface at one point. And then we're also kind of discovering that, like, you know, underneath like Derinkuyu in like Turkey and whatever, that there are like all of these underground caves that look like they would be able to house a whole bunch of people if there was like a cataclysm or something like that. And a lot of these things, you know, the underground caves, the pyramids, Machu Picchu, Tikal, like all of these anomalies around the world seem to have been built with like an advanced technology, or at least some kind of technology that we here on the surface of the earth now don't fully understand or grasp. So it makes me wonder if these people, whoever they were, these advanced race of humans, maybe they were hybrids, maybe they were something else, whatever they were, realize that the surface of the earth is like not safe just from like, you know, like any kind of apocalyptic scenario. And with this advanced technology that was clearly good enough to build things like the pyramids and all of these absolute, you know, mind-bending anomalies around the world, they then were like, okay, it's just far safer underground. Let's go, you know, let's just move our civilization down there. And then you've got us now on the surface. And I think what we could, this is just a theory, what we could potentially be dealing with is like the way it is in the Hunger Games in districts. There's like districts to civilization. And, you know, we think our district, we think our society and our section of the crust of the earth is it. When in reality, we are just in our district and like we are being exploited and manipulated by the district above us for whatever resource they require from us. Perhaps it could be like, you know, our energy. I mean, we hear people like Tom DeLonge say the others feed on negative energy. And, you know, whether that's like literal Baal worshipping vampires, cloning humans and abducting children, or maybe it's some money, like build technology. I think humans, like we are builders. We build and we love to reiterate and we love to innovate and we love to make new versions and do it again, but make it better. Like we just do that kind of like inherently. Just like, you know, we use dogs to, well, we used to use dogs to hunt and stuff. We could literally be being used to like design, create and innovate and our energy, right? And like, you know, you could even say that to us and like most of the people in this chat, our experience in reality is like generally like the same. Okay. You know, some people might have more money than others or less money, which probably dictates, you know, maybe you're living like a more comfortable or less comfortable life, but we're all generally in this like similar, you know, Western kind of like style society. But then if you go, you know, you hear that like in Africa, you know, I don't know the ins and outs of this, but you hear of things like in Africa, there are these like lithium mines that are used to make our iPhones, right? And these people are like heavily exploited. They work like 20 hours a day, just like mining lithium or something to make our iPhones. To them, to like their reality, their version of existing on Earth probably is like just being in the sun all day, like working hard, mining. Yeah, cobalt. That's maybe what I'm thinking of actually. You know, that's their, you know, maybe they have to go walk a kilometer and fetch water in a bucket and then go back and like boil it to drink. Like there is actually so many intense layers to existing on Earth, but like as one person, you can only perceive so much of like what's around you. So to these people who are working in cobalt mines in the African Congo, that's just that is what living on Earth is like to them. That's just what living on Earth is like. They don't know any better. They're probably born into it. I'm not saying like they're happy about it or they're sad about it. I don't know. They might not literally not know any better and just be happy doing it. Who knows? But that's not my point. My point is that is their experience on Earth. And that's all they can perceive. We're here, you know, you could probably say we're on like a slightly higher level, maybe a higher district of society. And, you know, this is our experience. This is our reality. But I think that there is probably rungs and districts above us like the ones that maybe worship Baal, maybe the ones that are suppressing us from inventing technology because that inventing free energy technology because that doesn't belong in our district. And when we talk about breakaway civilizations and the fact there does seem to be this upper ring of society that is, you know, manipulating and controlling or potentially communicating with these other intelligences, it makes sense that there is literally rungs to this stuff, and from the top down, they are just exploiting each other. We are mining our own cobalt. Yes, Ryan, I know that's what I'm saying is the people that are being exploited to mine the cobalt, you know, they're not here on YouTube watching live streams and hanging out and chatting in Discord and, you know, going clubbing or whatever. Like, that is not what reality is for them. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's almost like they are in a lower district. And you could even go lower than that, perhaps, and say the North Sentinel Island people, the Sentinelese people who we've looked at before, who literally bow and arrow hunt and you can't go there. That's like District 10. That's the most furthest out, lowest district. And then maybe you've got the African cobalt mines in the Congo. Then you've got, you know, maybe us. And then you've got the Baal worshipping elites. And then you've got the breakaway civilization with the UFOs. Like, these are just examples. But I think the higher you go up, you might even have an older, more advanced race of humans that have been here a long time that might be responsible for the pyramids. Because, you know, there's all these evidence of these like underground chambers that are like resonant, like perfectly tuned to like specific frequencies. So it's like, okay, that means they went underground, which means they probably would have survived the cataclysm, right? If we're finding these things and we know that there was a cataclysm, but we've found things that could have helped them survive it, no one seems to be asking the question of like, okay, but what if they did survive? Where are they now? And I think they could be under the ground because you would realize that being on the surface is not safe. And if you've got technology to build pyramids and create these like resonantly tuned chambers under the ground, you've probably got the technology to also just like shift an entire civilization down there. Thanks for letting me say that. That's literally been something that's been like mulling in my mind for probably like 3 or 4 months now. I just haven't really been able to get it out properly. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Actually, just quickly, we got a few super chats there. Bifter with his celebrating his 4 months as a weirdo. Thank you, mate, for all the support. He says, sorry, I'm late. Let's go. Daytime stream. Yes, sir. We are changing it up, sharing the love around a little bit. Yvonne Pandora with $5. Have a coffee on me. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I will. I definitely, after this green tea, it's definitely coffee time. Cheryl King, $8, just sends a clap. Thank you, Cheryl. Appreciate that. And Whitnit with $5. Didn't leave a message, but I appreciate the support, guys. Very generous of you. I say it all the time, but this community is like genuinely unmatched in terms of generosity and vibes and just beautiful people. I love it.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Clifford Stone. I was a Sergeant First Class, United States Army.
Here we go. This is who was sitting down with Bob Dean the other day when we watched that video when Bob Dean was smoking the 5-mile-long intergalactic cigar. This is his mate, Clifford Stone.
I had a secret clearance with nuclear surety. I could get the clearance that I needed to do whatever it was that was necessary for me to do at the time on special operations when I was called in on those. What I'm referring to here is that I was involved in situations where we actually did recoveries of crashed saucers, for lack of a better term, debris thereof. There were bodies that were involved with some of these crashes, also some were alive. While we were doing all this, we were telling the American public there was nothing to it. We were telling the world there was nothing to it. I'd like to go into detail on some of the cases about the nuts and bolts cases right here. But I will be available if you have any questions concerning my involvement in this. You can talk to Dr. Greer to arrange for me to get to talk to you. But the whole situation is, we've set back, we've told the American people that there's no such thing as UFOs. I've been involved where we have recovered these objects. We know them to be of extraterrestrials. In 1969, I had an event that happened to me while I was stationed at Fort Lee, Virginia. We went to Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania. That would be my first exposure to any time that we would be recovering an unidentified flying object. When we went there, we already had people that was already in the facility. We were a backup team, which was supposed to be NBC because there was supposed to be some nuclear materials that was on board this craft. Later on, most people involved would have been were to be told that there was nothing on board it. It was nothing more than just a crash of one of our aircraft. I know better because I was one of the people that approached it with a Geiger counter to get surface readings. I was the first person to go ahead and see that there were bodies on it. That would be the first of approximately 12 events. UFO crashes are not events that take place every day. They're rare. I know we're not alone in the universe. I know that the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It's evidence that has been denied to the American people.
Preach it, Cliff. Anxiety said, Josh, hello from Houston, Texas. I'm going through a lot at the moment, but your videos help me escape for a bit. Thank you. It's my pleasure, and thank you for the support. Thank you for being here. I hope you're okay. I'm sure whatever you're going through will pass. It always does. That's just life. Things go up, things go down. And in just a beautiful little synchronicity, not long after saying that, We Own the Light has gifted 5 memberships. You absolute legend. Thank you for the support. I appreciate that. And Anxiety was one of the people who received one. So there you go. There you go. That's what happens. You know, the universe can hear you and enjoy all the members only content. I really do, Anxiety. I really do specifically recommend go check out the After Dark members videos. So they are like a members only podcast that I do. It's a lot more personal. It's a lot more low key, but I think you'll enjoy them. Go and check those out. And thank you. Thank you, We Own the Light. And make sure if you got one of those memberships, you say thank you. Can we see some love for our 5 new freaks in the chat? And what else did we have here? $2 from Larek. Didn't leave a message, but thank you, sir. Or ma'am. Appreciate that. I shouldn't assume. El Significa with $5. We're all on Alien TV. You know, The Truman Show is a great movie. And when we think about the things that Matthew Brown has said, that like, you know, controlled reality, we live in a lie, etc., etc. I wonder if Truman represents, okay, let's go back to the theory that I was just talking about in that like the, you know, Earth's societies are laid in districts that you only know the districts from below. Okay, you can only see down. You only select people know about the districts up. Let's say the Truman Show, Truman represents our district. And that there is like, you know, via science, via entertainment, and via, you know, all the other main distractions, there is like it's like orchestrating a movie that we live in. I think there could be something to that. Mate, like that's a very vague description. I don't think it's accurate, but I think there could be something to that to some degree. Witnit with $5 says, these people do things based around rituals. So if we know their rituals and when they do them, we need to pay attention to what happens around that. Absolutely. I saw a really interesting video, and you know, this isn't new information, but given what we've been reading about like, you know, satanic cults and, you know, they have to tell you what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. When you look into satanic ritual abuse and you realize that there are all these victims absolutely distraught and it's heartbreaking and there's so many of them and there's just no way it's all made up. When you realize that that is real and that it seems to be ran by like certain rich elites, not all of them. It's not a grand conspiracy that all rich elite people are, you know, vampires, but that's clearly where this realm seems to lie. And when you consider that, and then you realize that it does seem to involve like the entertainment industry a little bit, you know, based on like leaked emails and like who hangs around with who and P. Diddy and all that kind of shit. And so once you understand that first. And then you look at like the things you see in like some like Beyonce concerts, or the things you see in like Lady Gaga and like all this kind of stuff. You know, maybe those people aren't the right ones, and I'm just stereotyping a little bit because I obviously don't watch that shit. But I think you guys know what I'm getting at by using them as examples. There is a lot of strange, dark, weird symbolism in their live performances. And yes, many people could say, oh, it's just art. It's just a performance. You're reading into it too much. You're a conspiracy theorist. Maybe. Well, definitely. But when you, like, if you only see that first, it's very easy to be like, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're all this, you're all that. For sure. I understand that. In fact, when I heard this kind of stuff before looking into satanic ritual abuse, I was far more like, oh, I don't know. You know, we could just be reading into shit too much here. These could just be people into that stuff. Because, you know, like when I was younger, I was a massive emo kid, right? Big dark fringe, black skinny jeans. You know, that was just my vibe. I wasn't a devil worshiper. I just liked the style. I liked the art. It, you know, resonated with me. It was just my vibe. So it's easy to kind of say, maybe this is just their vibe. Maybe Lady Gaga is just a bit of a straight up weirdo. Okay, that is a possibility. But when you look into how deep the satanic ritual abuse stuff is and how far spread it is, and then all this shit with P. Diddy, and then and just how far reaching and how much it does seem to lie in the upper echelons of society. And then you look at all the Lady Gaga and the Beyonce stuff, it's hard to think that there isn't something to these whole like rituals in plain sight. And I don't want to say that's 100% the case because I don't know. And that's very scary and very like, if that is the case, that's horrible. It is horrible. But it's like, once you look into that stuff, SRA and whatever, it has to be on the table. It has to be on the table, unfortunately, which is scary. Toxic Fart says, do aliens who crash their craft get their craft insurance raised? I would hope so. I wonder what their premium is. I bet it would be high. Larek with $5 says, been here since you started, finally made it to my first live stream. Did you see today the US announced plans to build a nuclear reactor on the moon? Really? I did not see that. That's very interesting. And you've just become a member. Welcome. Thank you for the support. Check out all the members only content. And make sure you come hang out in Discord as well. It's lots of good fun there. And look, just quickly on that before we get back to this, you know, I think it was even just this morning I said to someone in Discord that, and I've said it before, the stalling of disclosure that is obviously happening, right? You know, there's all these stories that happen, Skywatcher, all these big plans, and then it kind of just always fizzles out, and then it's all of a sudden we're another year down the track, and it's, oh, next year. It all seems like as we're all getting next year, soon, if you haven't noticed, like, the White House announced that we can actually manipulate time and space. Turns out that Tic Tac thing's Lockheed Martin technology. Turns out we're going to build this thing on the moon. It's like we're stalling to just, and Google invented this quantum AI Willow chip. It seems like as disclosure keeps stalling, we're getting these like convenient releases through like science and through the military industrial complex of like, oh, we just invented a Tic Tac. Yes. Oh, we just invented a nuclear reactor on the moon. Yes. Oh, we just worked out how to manipulate time and space. Yes. Exactly. They're trying to catch up their story. It's like they don't want to admit that they've been like doing this shit kind of secretly for a long time. So it's just like, okay, let's just slow down disclosure, give them Skywatcher, pretend we're studying this shit, give them like a nice production, really just pump the brakes. And we'll just work out how we conveniently can release this shit to the public whilst avoiding any accountability and any lawsuits and basically just taking zero accountability for our crimes. That's what seems like is actually happening here. Andy with $5 says, nothing more obvious than recent Olympic Games opening ceremonies. Like, wow. Yeah, that was very strange. A lot of people said it's just art. It's just art. And, you know, maybe it was. But it like you could say, to put it simply, they were like taking the piss out of the Bible. And I'm not saying that in a way of like, I'm offended by it, because I wasn't, because I don't align myself with a religion. But you can't deny that it was strange. It was very like new agey in a sense of like, would you even get that 10 years ago? You definitely wouldn't get it 20 years ago. It wouldn't be accepted. And now it's like, ooh, funny and accepted to like portray Jesus as like an overweight woman. Or like, I can't remember what it was, but it was like they had like a transgender Jesus, right? Which is like, I don't care if you want to be transgender, good on you. But like, it obviously that is like going to upset people, right? So the fact that that was like a conscious decision that was made shows that we are in like weird times when it comes to these belief systems that used to be like commonplace and kind of kept order in society. All right, that's enough yapping. Let's keep going.
I stand before you today in my almighty God, and I tell you this. If Congress calls me in and says, will you testify in detail what you know, I stand here today prepared and ready to do just that. Governments must never lie to the people for no reason. Thank you.
The little season coming to an end? Perhaps.
Good morning. My name
This one's a classic.
is Mark McCandish, and for the last 21 years, I have worked as a conceptual artist for a variety of defense contractors. I've been involved in conceptual artwork or the production thereof for Rockwell on the X-30 program, and also on the High Step program, that's spelled HYSTP.
Sorry, let's just try and get a little look at that.
On the X-30 program.
X-30. Does anyone know what he's referring to? The X-30. I feel like I've seen the picture that he's holding up before, but X-30 specifically doesn't ring a bell. Anyone in chat know what we've got here? Oz Harleys and Michael Gibbons, you little freaks, coming in together at the same time. Did you guys carpool? Did you guys carpool here? Because you guys basically walked in at the same time. Welcome. Thank you. Make sure you check out the members only content. Come hang out in Discord. Can we see some love hearts for our latest weirdos?
And also on the High Step program, that's spelled
High Step program. This photo looks like the same thing to me.
YSTP means Hypersonic Testbed Program. During the course of my career, I've twice had a secret security clearance. In 1967, while my father was stationed at Westover Air Force Base, the headquarters for 8th Air Force Strategic Air Command, I witnessed and watched through a telescope a UFO which hovered over a nuclear weapons storage facility for approximately 10 minutes and then departed with an acceleration approaching a bullet leaving a rifle barrel. I'm sorry.
Young Stephen wants to show off the picture that he drew.
In 1988, in November, a college buddy of mine, an associate by the name of Brad Sorensen, informed me that he had personally witnessed 3 flying saucers at a very large hangar at Norton Air Force Base during the course of an air show that was held on Saturday, November 12, 1988. I subsequently called my congressman from that district. I called his office. This was Congressman George E. Brown, Jr., who at the time was the chairman of the Congressional Committee on Space Science and Advanced Technology. I naturally assumed that since this presentation that Brad talked about was for top military brass and certain congressional individuals, that his office must have coordinated this with the local Air Force Office of Public Affairs. A male staff member in Congressman Brown's office not only confirmed the exhibit, but the fact that there were 3 discs at that exhibit. These discs were hovering off the floor without any visible means of support. They were referred to as alien reproduction vehicles, also nicknamed the flux liner because they used high voltage electricity. Let's see. To keep things short, this is a diagram that I made based on a sketch that Brad Sorensen did for me in rough form shortly after he had his sighting and subsequently cleaned that drawing up and made it much more accurate. And that's the drawing that Dr. Greer is holding there now. Later on, I obtained photographs that were taken in 1967 by a military pilot.
Interesting photo. We don't really get a better shot of it, but I mean, that thing is like, actually, you know what? While we've got it paused, let's try and, let me see what we can do here. That's like a classic, you know, that's, you don't see them like that anymore. They don't make them like that anymore. This is old tech. This is, you know, people say, why don't we see UFO, like flying saucers anymore? Because it's old tech, bro. The Nazis and the other guys, the Nordics, the Breakaways, you know, this is 1930s, 1940s tech. Maybe 50s, 60s, they got a little bit different. But, you know, I think they've moved away from the circular model, personally. I think they've moved away from the circular model and they've moved to the, you know, sort of oblong, no, like kind of like cylindrical. That's what I'm trying to say. Cylindrical. They've moved to the cylindrical shape with rounded capped ends. Far more ergonomic. Fit more people in it. Better for humans. You know, humans don't work well in slanted roofs. Okay, you get a tall guy in there, he can only stand up in the middle. It just doesn't really work that well. Go to the cylindrical, far more optimized for the Breakaway civilization to perform their operations. Let's get this back in shape. And just before we keep going, I'm going to go back and pause it on the flux liner drawing as well before we move on. But ICHISP, welcome. Thank you. By Polarity, fantastic name. I think you guys might have carpooled as well. You both rolled in here at about the same time. Welcome, guys. Welcome, the latest weirdos. Can we see some love? Check out the members' content. Enjoy. By the way, if you're a member, if you don't realize, you've got access to members' emojis as well. So if you hit the smiley, you've got basically me as an alien with my beard and hat. You can play with those. We've got enough members now that I can add way more emotes. So I should probably do that. I'll add that to the list of 7 million things I need to do. And yeah, and you also get a cool badge next to your name. So welcome, guys, and enjoy.
Harvey Williams flying a C-47 for the Air Force at 12,000 feet, approximately 25 miles southwest of Provo, Utah. This particular vehicle matches the so-called ARV in all proportions and respects in terms of the detail of the shape of the craft. And this was photographed, as I say, in June or July of June of 1967. I later spoke to a gentleman by the name of Kent Sellen that I met at an air show at Edwards Air Force Base in 1992, the first unveiling publicly of the B-2 bomber. He indicated to me that in 1973, when he was a crew chief working on experimental aircraft at Edwards Air Force Base, that he had unintentionally wandered into an area where there was a classified aircraft, namely the ARV. He described it in detail, and he added other details to the account concerning the configuration and the operation of the vehicle that Brad Sorensen was not aware of. Subsequently, Brad Sorensen met with the famous aeronautical designer Burt Rutan, gave him a copy of this blueprint which you've just been shown. Mr. Rutan felt that it was a joke and put it on his wall as kind of a joke. And a third party confirmed for me later that a Colonel Ray Walsh from Edwards Air Force Base was visiting Mr. Rutan, saw this blueprint on the wall and registered quite a degree of shock and anger, wanted to know where the hell he got this blueprint, because there was in fact such a craft at that time, approximately 1994, 95, in a hangar at Edwards Air Force Base, North Base Complex at that time. Subsequently, I've done a lot of research on this product, this vehicle. I've come across a number of declassified documents that show that the Air Force, as early as 1960, was wind tunnel testing flying saucer shapes up to Mach 20. And I also have declassified NASA documents that show similar shapes. In fact, this is the document here that more or less details the wind tunnel testing up to Mach 20. This is the NASA document right here that was declassified, and it shows a variety of spherical and lenticular shapes that were flight tested up to, or I should say, wind tunnel tested up to Mach 6. I subsequently obtained a copy of an interoffice memo from Hercules Aerospace that describes a particular type of science involving something called zero-point energy and scalar waves. According to Brad Sorensen, this is the basis of the technology for these anti-gravity propulsion systems. This particular document here describes 6 different meetings involving the Defense Intelligence Agency and cooperative efforts with the Russian scientific community in investigating this, what is called the fundamental enabling technology that was originally discovered apparently by Nikola Tesla in the early 1900s. Anyway, I could provide you much more detail at a later time, and I am prepared to testify in detail concerning these events and their truthfulness before Congress. Thank you very much.
So that was Mark McCandish, and, you know, probably one of the stronger, well, not stronger, but like, no, yeah, I guess one of the stronger testimonies that gets shown. And obviously what's really interesting is this drawing here that is shown at the start. I think there is a better close-up of it. He calls this an alien reproduction vehicle. And, you know, this is interesting as well. Okay, we'll just play it from here and we'll get the close-up soon. You know, like if we go back to what I was saying before about, you know, we have this tech, it's a breakaway civilization, but then you've got like people, like remember earlier in the year, maybe a couple of months ago, that guy came out from NASA. His name was, I think, Greg Rogers. But like he didn't, and he was like a whistleblower, but he didn't really come, you know, through Jeremy Corbell or through the usual channels. He like did an interview with like the Daily Mail or something. Like it was just in like a news article. I think like Vetted did like a pretty comprehensive overview of it. It's just, it's weird, right? Like it makes me wonder if, again, like, I don't know if I'm just trying to fit all my theories together here, or maybe the Richard Dolan is right. Like, and you know, what if it is actually all real and that there is a breakaway civilization that, you know, spawned somewhere around like the 30s and 40s, and that they have all this wild tech that has been seen. And yet there is also governments with, like, our government is trying to knock it down and make their own versions of it, because the NASA whistleblower from earlier this year said that he saw, you know, a saucer shape sometime in like the, I don't know, 60s or 70s with United States Air Force insignia on it. So it's like, and is that why it's so secret? Because we're trying to steal tech off the higher district? You know, who knows? I'm really struggling to find this close up, by the way, which is annoying. Okay, look, that'll do. This drawing is, well, I mean, he refers to this as an alien reproduction vehicle. It looks pretty similar to what Bob Lazar drew as well. Not exact, but like pretty similar. Very similar, actually. And I always try to wonder, like, why is it so secret? Why is this stuff so secret? The fact that we could be trying to, like, steal from a more advanced race that lives here, or a group of humans that have broken away and are trying to dominate us, is a potential reason. Maybe, like, that makes sense on why it's so secretive. It's not because they're trying to hide it from us. It's because they're trying to hide it, what they're doing and what they've achieved from the people above, the districts above. You understand what I'm saying when I'm, you know, breakaway civilization, whatever you want to call them, but just like a greater district. Because if it does actually work in districts like that, like the Hunger Games, there's probably rule sets for each district on like what they can and can't do. Maybe there's ways to graduate as a society into another district to go up. Maybe you can even go down. I don't know. These are just theories. Don't repeat what I'm saying as truth, please. Susie Sunshine with $15. Very generous, Susie. Thank you very much. She says, is it plausible that disclosure efforts are partly motivated by legal and political protection, self-protection? We created transparency. If there's something we didn't uncover, it wasn't due to negligence. I think the disclosure effort that we're seeing playing out through, you know, CIA players and the rest. You know, anyone who says like, "Oh, I used to be in the CIA," or "I used to work for a aerospace military industrial contractor," I would say any of those people, yes, to your question. It is entirely plausible that it is motivated by legal and political self-protection. 100%. And I'll tell you why. Because there's no way that after like 100 years of like of keeping this shit like above top secret, killing people who have come out to talk about it, you know, people who have tried to sue these contractors and governments from after they've incurred like radiation injuries and have wanted compensation. And then when it gets taken to court, these companies kick the case out of court and cite that the evidence that this person brought to support that they have radiation injuries from this stuff is a matter of national security. Like, it's just like the ultimate trump card. Like, you want to speak out against them, your evidence is classified. Sorry. Got a problem? National security, bitch. Get out. Like, you just can't win. So the fact that now all of a sudden there's like this change of heart, there's like this sudden, change of heart in 2017 where all these CIA guys have come out and been like, oh, there are these unidentified things in the sky. There could be an imminent threat. I call bullshit because honesty, true honesty, would be taking accountability and explaining yourself for the last 80 years. Put your hand up, admit what you've done, take some accountability, explain why you did it. You know, like there's no harm in apologizing and saying, yeah, look, we probably kept this shit under wraps for too long. It got out of hand due to a whole multitude of people and things and orders that were signed by presidents. Things got out of hand. This was why we made the decision to make it top secret at the time. We thought we were doing the right thing, but shit definitely got out of hand, and that is how we ended up here today. Until that comes first, why the fuck would we believe anything that they say is like honest or that there's not an ulterior motive? Like, you have to take some accountability before people are going to believe shit that you say when you've obviously been covering something up for a long time. Josh, you're giving them too much grace. Some of these people are pure evil. Don't forget that. Yeah, no, I don't think I am forgetting that. I don't think I am forgetting that at all. I'm saying like, I'm saying like, I just don't believe them until we get some accountability. We need accountability. Like, how can you expect anyone to be fully on your side when you've clearly been lying for a long time? Like, accountability first, and then people might listen to you. It's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. Like, you keep crying wolf, and like you expect us to keep believing it when we know you've already lied like the last few times. It's like just logic, really. Okay, let me find where we're up to. There's Little Greer. The next one's a good one. We get to see a young Danny Sheehan.
Provide you much more detail and at a later time, and I am prepared to testify in detail concerning these events and their truthfulness before Congress. Thank you very much.
Rogue ET. Sorry, I don't know if I don't think I said this. Rogue ET chucked in $10 and said, "Keep up the great work, mate." Thank you, sir. You're always supporting the streams. You're always in here contributing to the chat, to the super chats. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
My name is Daniel Sheehan. I'm an attorney and serving as general counsel to the Disclosure Project. I'm a 1967 graduate of Harvard College in American Government Studies and Constitutional Law, and a graduate of Harvard Law School. And I served as general counsel and one of the co-counsel for the New York Times in the Pentagon Papers case, and was involved in briefing and arguing the case in front of the United States Supreme Court, giving permission to the New
Mish. He really does. He actually looks like Bilbo Baggins in Fellowship of the Ring. He really does.
New York Times to publish the classified documents, the 47 volumes of the Pentagon Papers.
And sorry, just quickly, I think I forgot to add, Mark McCandish, who we just heard from there with the ARV drawings, committed suicide in 2021, was found with a bullet wound in the head. So make of that what you will. Back to Bilbo Baggins.
Subsequent to that time, I served as special counsel to the office of F. Lee Bailey as one of the trial counsels when we represented James McCord in the Watergate burglary, and got Mr. McCord to write the letter to Judge Sirica to reveal the Watergate burglars' relationship to the plumbers unit in the White House at that time. Subsequent to my service in that case, I went back to Harvard to the Divinity School to study Judeo-Christian social ethics and public policy. Did my master's work and PhD work there, and became general counsel for the United States Jesuit headquarters in Washington, D.C., assigned to the National Social Ministries Office and their public policy office. It was there in 1977 that I was contacted by Ms. Marcia Smith, who was the director of the Science and Technology Division of the Congressional Research Service. She asked to meet with me, and I met with her, and she informed me that President Carter, upon taking office in January of 1977, held a meeting with then the Director of Central Intelligence, who was George Bush Sr., and demanded that the Director of Central Intelligence turn over to the President the classified information about unidentified flying objects and the information that was in the possession of the United States intelligence community concerning the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence. This information was refused to the President of the United States by the Director of Central Intelligence, George Bush Sr. The Director insisted that the President, in order to have access to this information, needed to have clearance to contact the Congressional Research Service, to contact the United States House of Representatives Science and Technology Division, to have them undertake a process to declassify this information, because the DCI suspected that the President was preparing to reveal this information to the American public. The Congressional Research Service Science and Technology Division, under the directorship of Marcia Smith, was contacted by the House Science and Technology Committee and instructed to undertake a major investigation of the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence and the relationship of the UFO phenomenon to this. I was contacted by Ms. Smith and asked, in my capacity as general counsel to the United States Jesuit headquarters, National Social Ministry Office, to see if we could obtain access to the Vatican Library, to obtain the information that the Vatican had with regard to extraterrestrial intelligence and the phenomenon of the UFOs. I pursued that with the permission of Father William J. Davis, the director of the national office, and we were refused access as the United States Jesuit order to the information in the possession of the Vatican Library. When I reported this to Ms. Smith, she then later subsequently asked me to participate in a project which I can go into some detail during the question and answer period or later to individuals, pursuant to which I was given access to, as a special consultant to the United States Library of Congress Congressional Research Service, to the classified portions of the Blue Book project of the Air Force. At that point, it was in 1977, approximately May of 1977, I went to the Madison building of the United States Library of Congress. There was no one in the building at that time. It was brand new. I was directed to a basement office where there were two guards at the door and a third sitting at the table who took my identification, verified that I'd been designated as a special consultant to the Congressional Research Service of the United States Library of Congress, and was admitted to the room. I thereupon found photographs, some dozen photographs, of what is unquestionably an unidentified flying object on the ground that had crashed and plowed a furrow in a field of snow, and it was embedded in an embankment. There were United States Air Force personnel surrounding this craft, taking photographs of the craft. And one of the photographs, I could see that there were some symbols on the side of the craft. And so I proceeded through the photographs and found a close-up photograph of these symbols. I'd been instructed that I was to take no notes and had to leave my briefcase and all my identification outside of this room, but I had brought with me a yellow pad. And so what I did is I opened up the yellow pad and refocused the overhead camera onto the same size as the cardboard backing of the yellow pad, and I physically traced the copies of the symbols on the side of this craft, closed the yellow pad back, put the microfiche back into the canister, reclosed the box that I had, and I said, it is time for me to leave. And I took this and proceeded.
I always find that part so strange about this story. I mean, I'm sure most of us have heard this story from Danny before. He's told it on a lot of podcasts like recently, which is interesting, right? Because this is over 20 years ago and the story is basically the same detail for detail. So to me, like that's enough for me to, you know, I mean, I believe him. But I always find that part odd. I mean, you know, who knows what the tension was like for him going through those files in that moment, like who knows? But the fact that the way he tells the story is that this was like a big crate of files, and that like pretty quickly he came across this photo of like a crashed UFO, and it had these like hieroglyph symbols on it, and he drew out the symbols and then bailed. Like that part, I'm just like I mean, unless like you thought like, I don't know, maybe because he wasn't allowed to do that, he started panicking. But like, bro, you've got a whole box there, and you just like basically pulled out the first thing you saw, did a little sketch, and it's a photo of a real UFO, and you don't want to look through the rest? Like, come on. Come on. But fair play to Danny, though. Like, I think Danny Sheehan, no, I don't think he's a grifter or anything like that. I think the way, you know, you can tell he's telling the truth. But what I think is important to remember as well, and I'm not saying this is the case for Danny, it might be, but it could be a case for a lot of these people, is that I think it's important to remember that, like, you know, this shit has been running for so long now, this like cover up. And it's not even just about UFOs, but like the control of society is like multi-generational, so compartmentalized that like, and I think the reason why it's so successful is that people who are even in these higher levels of society, like, okay, like Danny Sheehan, you know, he's like a Harvard lawyer involved in all these like major cases. These people who like genuinely think they're doing the right thing and they're investigating this stuff, and to them it all seems legit, and they think they're doing their part. But I think it's important to like consider that like the Psy-Op could be of proportions that are so big and so like reach so far back generationally now that the people who are like copying it now, it's like you think you're investigating something, but it's the whole thing is just like a lie. But it's that far reaching that like the people, I don't know how to explain really what I'm trying to say. Hopefully some of you guys are getting what I'm saying, but like it's just that deep that these people who we expect to be at the forefront, like Danny Sheehan and getting in Congress and Tim Burchett and like uncovering the truth, it's like these, like what they're playing around with and digging in is literally just more layers of the bullshit. But they think they're doing the right thing. They think they're getting somewhere. And then we think they're getting somewhere. But in reality, it's just so deep and so old and ancient that it's just like, nah, You're literally going in circles.
To leave the office, at which point the security guards stopped me, and one of them said, "What is that you have there, Mr. Sheehan?" At which point I handed the yellow pad to him, and he flipped through all the yellow pages and never found.
Thank you, Crypto Sherpa. Yeah, I was struggling to get that out, and you said it very nicely and concisely. Thank you.
Found the copy that I had, and so I took that with me and brought it to the United States Jesuit headquarters, had a meeting with the staff, with Father William J. Davis, reported this to them, was authorized at that time by the United States Jesuit headquarters to make a report to the National Council of Churches and to request that the entire 54 major religious denominations of our country undertake a major study of extraterrestrial intelligence, which they declined to do. I was subsequently asked to deliver a 3-hour closed-door seminar to the top 50 scientists of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory of SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, which I did do in 1977. I'm more than happy to testify under oath to these details to the United States Congress, and would be happy to meet with any members of the press at that time. You may recall I also served as chief counsel to the Karen Silkwood case, in which we obtained the rulings in the Karen Silkwood case. I also served as chief counsel in the Iran-Contra case. It was the first one to testify before the United States Congress to the existence of the off-the-shelf enterprise of Richard Secord and Albert Hakim. I'll be more than happy to share the details of what I believe to be the relationship between this off-the-shelf enterprise and the secret government, which is concealing this information from the American public. And I am happy and proud to serve as general counsel to the Disclosure Project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bilbo. It was nice to see. It's nice to see the Fellowship of Disclosure here doing their thing and Bilbo speaking. No, I mean, that is quite uncanny. It's actually crazy. But, let's be serious here. What's the guy's name you said you remember, Josh? David, you'll have to give me a bit more context, mate. Oh, Donald Marshall. Donald Marshall. Is that what you're talking about? Let's go. Yep. Donald Marshall. I'm very happy with that. Yep. So sick of conspiracy theorists being thrown around. No, truth seekers with critical thinking needs to be more the label. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Raven, but I respect it. I respect your frustration with the topic. Absolutely. What was I going to... there was one more thing I wanted to say here. I know with Danny Sheehan's story, with like this drawing that he took from being able to see these Blue Book files, has also like been lost. It's been allegedly lost, which is strange, right? Why do these things just always conveniently disappear? People are saying the disclosure is never going to come through the government. It's never going to come through these channels. It's not going to come through Danny Sheehan. It's not going to come through Lou Elizondo. It's not going to come through Stephen Greer. It's not going to come through Jake Barber. It's not going to come through Skywatcher. I feel like there needs to be like a shift. It's not going to come through Ross Coulthard either. There needs to be like a shift. And interestingly, I don't know, I'm not saying this is it, but you guys probably saw, I mean, I've spoke a lot about it the last few days that I've been putting, and I've put clips on X of me kind of relating Patrick Jackson's sphere network theory with the recent paper by Dr. Beatriz Villarreal, right? I think they are two jigsaw pieces that fit very well together and tell a very interesting story. Now, I made a couple of posts about that the other day, and I tagged both Patrick Jackson and Dr. Royale in the Villarreal in the post. I don't know if they liked it or anything. I didn't see it. I don't really know how to use X. I don't know if you can see a list of people who have liked your stuff, but I didn't see it if they did. But what's interesting is like the next day, I did a non-related post about them, and Patrick Jackson commented on it, just kind of saying something like, we need we basically need a new, disclosure needs a breath of fresh air, and it needs to be approached from a new and different angle. Kind of like alluding to the fact that what I was speaking about the last few days is like potentially you know, like we need to look more towards like, you know, scientists who aren't connected to the CIA. You know what I mean? So that was kind of interesting, right? The fact that he even commented on my shit, because I've never spoken to him before, and he didn't seem to like interact with the posts that I made directed at him in the previous days, correlating their data, but then he kind of like hit me up the day after that. I don't know. I thought that was interesting, but I brought it up because what I'm saying is I don't think disclosure is ever going to happen, at least not what we want, through these channels. The disclosure we'll get through these channels is like, no one's going to be held responsible for anything. No, there's going to be no accountability for everything. And we're going to probably get stories that Lockheed Martin and all of these contractors have just come out with the latest new flying technology, and it's gravitic repulsion. And then it'll probably, you know, step up from there, right? I think disclosure right now is a stall. So these people can avoid accountability and just conveniently invent and release this technology thanks to AI. Woo, we just worked it out. We swear to God, we didn't have it 60 years ago. But I think the disclosure we want will come through like, you know, rogue people like Patrick Jackson perhaps and others, and Dr. Villarroel, who aren't tied to the CIA and have data to actually just kick the door down and be like, here it is. That's just my theory. Don't repeat it as truth. Okay, this is a big one. I really need to go to the bathroom, right? So what I'm going to do, Suki is going to watch this one with you guys. And I'm not going to be very long, but at least someone's hosting the show. Look, she doesn't look like she's ready to work too hard, but at least you have someone, and I'll only be 30 seconds.
Good morning. My name is Carol Rosin. In 1974, after being a sixth grade school teacher, I was introduced to the late Dr. Wernher von Braun in the U.S., the father of rocketry. In my first meeting with him, during that first 3.5 hours, he said to me, Carol, you will stop the weaponization of space. And I said, you know, teachers don't stop until June. He said, no, you have to understand. This is February. And we have to prevent the weaponization of space because there is a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies, he said, against whom we're going to build this space-based weapon system. The first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids. And then he would repeat to me over and over, and the last card, the last card, the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat. Well, at the time, I kind of laughed when he said asteroids, and when he said extraterrestrials, I knew I wasn't going to deal with that subject. And now we hear on the news just today, this week, that they've slid in another enemy. Only this time we're going to protect our satellites. In other words, we have to have some reason to spend these trillions, to waste these dollars on a space-based weapon system, and they're all lies. This is a system, he told me, that would never protect anyone. Even back then, he talked about suitcase bombs. He talked about chemical, viral, bacterial, biological warfare, that these space-based weapons would never protect us against. And then he told me that, in fact, if you travel around the world, which I did after he died in 1977, I met with people in over 100 countries who were friends. They didn't want to build space-based weapons. I became a space and missile defense consultant, and I worked with people around the world. I became an advisor to the People's Republic of China. They don't want to build a space-based weapon system, and he told me back then that they didn't. He said, go to Russia. They're considered to be the enemy. I got on a plane by myself. When I got to Russia, I had a list of people that I had read out of the newspaper. Chernenko was in office then. He was the only one I didn't get a chance to meet. They introduced me to everyone when I got there. And when I got back, I said, oh my Lord, this man is telling the truth. There is no threat. And I've been waiting until this day for 27 years, and I'm expecting the spin to happen, because he also explained to me that as a military strategist, as a person who worked on the MX missile, which I did later, He said, you will find that there is going to be a spin to find some enemy against whom we have to build space-based weapons. And now we should expect the spin, because he said part of the formula for the intelligence community is if they might have a weapon, then we have to consider that they do have these weapons. So now they do have these weapons, so now we have to build these weapon systems. And that's the formula, except that it's all based on a lie. And we have witnesses here today that have shown you that these extraterrestrial beings, that these craft that have come here are now not UFOs, they're identified flying objects, and we know that they have beings in them. And we have witnesses here who have told you that they can shut down our missile silos, they can stop a rocket going into space that's a test. We have witnesses here who have worked in the classified departments who have the courage to come forward here to support what Wernher von Braun told me back in 1974 to 77. And I will testify before the Congress that when I founded the Institute for Security and Cooperation in Outer Space, which I shut down a few years ago because I didn't believe we had a chance with this huge, integrated around the world, complex weapon system, that we had any chance at all of transforming that war industry into a space industry that could provide benefits, like Dr. Greer has said, of global warming. We can end that situation of that problem. We can end the energy crisis. We can build now non-polluting technologies. Wernher von Braun used to tell me that we could have cars back then that drove around off the ground. He described this to me on beams so that we have no pollution on this planet. And we can solve the problems of the people that are urgent and potential, and the other animals and the other cultures on Earth and in space. And we can end the arms race without dislocating the industry jobs, without disrupting the economy, by transforming, Wernher von Braun told me, the war industry into a global cooperative space industry that will provide, he said, finally, more jobs and profits on this planet than during any hot or cold wartime, more products and services that can be applied directly to solving the problems of this planet. And we can have a whole planet now that lives in peace on Earth, with all the cultures on Earth and with all the extraterrestrial cultures in space. And these are words that Wernher von Braun told me in 1974, and I will testify before the Congress under oath about everything I have said and more. Thank you.
Definitely one of the more impactful ones of this entire press conference. It's a clip that we've looked at on the channel a couple of times. It's nice to watch the whole thing in full. It's like, and as Heidi said, it's even a few months ago, doesn't even connect as many dots as it does now. And you know, again, I think the disclosure and what is actually going on is so complicated, because again, like, it's been kept secret for this long, and things are obviously changing and happening in real time and being developed. There's probably deals and agreements and things that have gone wrong, things that have been achieved. Like, and I feel, you know, if you look at the history of, say, whatever country you live in, if you look at your own country's history over the last 80 years, things have probably changed so much. You know, like, maybe like your economy's gone up and then it's died and then it's boomed again. Maybe you've had issues with immigration. Maybe you've had issues with this. Like, you would have had so many things happen in your country. I think the same would be for disclosure. So it's like, if we're to get disclosure or the truth of like what's happened, it's like, okay, where do we begin? Do we just say what's going on right now? Or do we maybe say how it started and all the interactions perhaps with like various intelligences and technology advancements and deals that have been broken and struck and new ones made and alliances with other secret alliances with countries? It's probably so complex that it's just like a lot. It's going to be a lot for people, I think. And it's interesting there as well how she highlights saying how like Russia, I think did she say China as well? Like, she's saying like these other countries don't want to build weapons in space. Something seems to have hold of the military industrial complex in America that wants to build space weapons and weaponize space and potentially shoot down these other craft and whatever it is. And, you know, we've heard stories of like Holloman Air Force Base, or the one that Bob Dean said the other day, where he said like the Anunnaki came out. Like, you know, who knows what he means by that. But we've heard many cases of the Creator Treaty. You know, America around the Eisenhower era entered into some kind of agreement, apparently with a non-human intelligence. And also part of the story is that after a decade, maybe 2 decades, people started to realize that we've been shafted. That this deal that got made, that we thought it was going to be fair and we were going to get this and you guys can do that and we'll all just continue moving along happily, it hasn't worked out like that. We've been basically sold off. We're essentially like been hijacked by something. And then you look at how this, you know, sorry to go back there again, but this, you know, satanic ritual abuse stuff, this cult, this high ring of society that seems to be very involved in, I won't even say America, I'll say the West. It seems to be like the West, the Five Eyes Alliance plus Israel. It seems to be those countries that are the ones that are like primarily involved in this weird like energy extraction ritual stuff. What if that is to do with something about these agreements that kind of went wrong? Or maybe it's far older than that. Maybe it really does go back to some kind of Khazarian lineage. But the fact that Carol Rosin is saying Russia don't want to weaponize space, these other countries don't want to weaponize space, and then we're seeing that a lot of the elites and stuff in the West seem to be vampires, to just put it under one word so I don't have to keep explaining it. And then Russia comes out recently and talks about how the vampire ball is coming to an end. And we're kind of getting this real tense feeling towards a disclosure. I don't know. The dots seem to add up for me. Josh, it's completely worldwide. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there are bad people everywhere. I'm not saying that there aren't, but I think Hollywood is a fucked up place. I think Hollywood is like, I don't think Hollywood is like this entertainment industry that also has this dark side. I think it was actually always intended to have, it was put up with a dark side. It was put up to be a front for a dark side. It wasn't like, I don't think it was put up and then got like subverted and like became this weird place. I think it was always meant to be what it is. That's what I think. It was always meant to be what it is. Because it serves so many purposes. Keeps people distracted, creates like a funneling network for like talent and people who can be controlled and being able to blackmail and control their influence. You can tell stories. You can insert ideas and narratives into people's minds through movies and stories and putting it into their televisions in their homes. Like, I think what it is actually evil, for lack of a better word, at its core. I don't think it was a fun little thing that turned bad. I think it's always been something fucked up. Hey, Suki, you're a good girl. Thank you for the $2. Our Lester. Toxic Fart with $2. Nice job, Suki. Here's $2. She must have done a good job while I was gone. MIB with $2. This is all bureaucracy. We need contact ourselves. And the Wrath of Can't Even with $2 says, friendly reminder, the SR-71 was built in the 1950s. Thank you very much. I nearly forgot. And it's important if we have any new people here that they know that as well.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank each of the witnesses and for your patience. We're running about 50 minutes late, and I do apologize for that. I want to emphasize that all of these witnesses each could speak for probably anywhere from 2 to 5 hours about what they have witnessed. We were trying to give you a snapshot. We have another 400 of these witnesses. I have carried this burden for 8 years. I'm now giving it to you, the American people and the people of the world, to take it forward. What I'd like to do now is open the audience for questions from the media. You may address them to me or to an individual witness as you deem appropriate. Yes, ma'am.
Someone says, oh, where did it go? Jerry says TV used to be wholesome, though. That's fair. You are right. I do think TV, you know, now versus then is very different. And, you know, okay, perhaps let's say it wasn't dark from the beginning in terms of Hollywood and, you know, TV programming. But I feel like, okay, yeah, what probably makes more sense is that very quickly, intelligence agencies realized the power of everyone having this box in their home that back then was like the pinnacle of entertainment, and that families would literally gather around and just stare at this thing. I think very quickly, intelligence agencies would have realized that that is extremely powerful as a control mechanism. Not even for a control mechanism, but like for inserting ideas, narratives, and messages into people's minds. Because you don't just... The news doesn't just tell a story objectively. It always tells the story with some kind of bias, whether it's like left-leaning, right-leaning, or even just like, you know, it always tells, like, and that's human nature, right? It would be strange to just say things without some kind of lean in some direction. I think that's normal. But the news obviously does that on a more than normal degree. Like, they clearly have an agenda behind the way topics are presented and the things that they are speaking about. And I think, yeah, an intelligence agency would have realized that that is extremely powerful. And then that is probably what took TV, Hollywood, and entertainment from like this cool, fun new thing where people kind of seemed a bit more like, you know, innocent. When like, you know, things like Happy Days were probably like a TV show. I don't know. To what it is today, because it's very different now, and there's no argument about that. El Significa with $10 says, I feel like a medieval artist trying to paint a tiger that I've never seen when it comes to figuring all this shit out. Yeah, I feel you. That's why you just got to stay objective. Just take in the data. Don't have to align with anything. Just collect data and look for patterns. Television, yes. Full of programs to program you. That's so tinfoil hatty to say, but like, it's just is true. It's just is true. Because that's what it does. Like, whether you want to believe that that's true or not, that like, ooh, they're programming us. That's why they call it programming. Like, you know, that stuff does sound so like conspiratorial. I get that. But when you realize that, like, if you went up and just asked a normie, been like, where do you find out about what's going on around the world? Probably the news. And how have you formed your opinions based on those things? Probably based on like how the news portrays the story to you, right? Like if you'd never heard about like the war in Syria, and the first time it came on the TV was just like, evil Western country invades and starts killing innocent Syrians, rah, 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 you would be like, oh man, like this is so bad. But it comes on our TV as like, you know, boots are now on the ground in Syria to fight terrorism. We will no longer stand for these terrorists. And it's like, oh yeah, we can't have terrorism. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying either of those opinions are right. What I'm trying to highlight is the fact that the way the story is delivered, whether people realize it or not, creates their worldview. If terrorism wasn't a word, and instead of hearing about it from the side that we do, and we heard about it from the side of like, we're being invaded by white people, by Americans and Australians and the British, and they're just bombing us, then we would be like, hey, that's cooked. Why are we doing that? Why are they doing that to us? We need to fight back. The way that we think is completely dictated by the news in its entirety. And that's why mainstream media sucks ass. Because massive corporations have these news outlets in their pockets, obviously. So the stories are told with a lean towards whatever is going to favor these massive companies. Obviously, I know a lot of you guys know this shit. Like, this is Conspiracy Theorist 101. But for anyone who maybe doesn't realize, just saying, it's obvious that, like, why would a company who controls a news outlet let them tell a story that is going to paint their company, who maybe profits off you being sick? The pharmaceutical industry, who, if they actually cured people, would go out of business. The pharmaceutical industry, who makes money on selling medicine. If the medicine fixed you completely, there would be no medicine to sell and there would be no pharmaceutical company left. Or at least they wouldn't be making the kind of money that they do by making you need to keep getting the medicine. Okay, these people control the news. Therefore, the stories that are on the news are going to play in their favor. Wakey, wakey.
Yes, Maribel Gonzalez with Reforma, Mexican newspaper. I have 3 questions. One is, if right here. Yes, I wanted to know if there are laws in this country that in some way allowed this kind of secrecy or not. And then I wanted to know if there's a need to change any kind of law. And the next one I wanted to ask you, if you may, is who is profiting from this secrecy that maintains in secret the solution to the energy crisis? I mean...
Well, let me get to those, okay, quickly, because we are short on time. First of
Greer hasn't changed. Greer is still so Greer. But fair play. I was thinking, like, she's been offered a question and she's throwing in like 70 questions. Like, bro, just relax. Ask one, let other people have a turn.
of all, I think initially there was an appropriate national security apparatus in place in the 40s during the Truman and also Eisenhower years. By the late Eisenhower years, we have a testimony from Brigadier General Stephen Lubkin, still a practicing attorney, that by the late Eisenhower years that he had lost control of these projects primarily because of the compartmentalization into the military-industrial complex. Operative word industrial. There are corporations such as SAIC, Lockheed Martin, Northrop, and others that deal specifically with this issue, with advanced energy and propulsion systems connected to UFOs. And I think that what has happened, from the best we can tell, from insiders that have briefed me for now about 8 years, is that we have lost control of these projects from a constitutional law perspective because the infrastructure within military intelligence and corporate channels is so well funded and so complex and labyrinthine that there are compartments within compartments within compartments, and people who are in the Congress who make inquiries, and in fact President Clinton, when he made inquiries, were simply denied access, as you heard earlier that President Carter was denied access. On your other question, I would say that in terms of profiting from the status quo, big oil. There are certain geopolitical and financial infrastructures that would not welcome a definitive replacement to the fossil fuels. I will tell you, and we can prove this with other scientists who are ready to come forward, that we already have a complete replacement for any fossil fuels or ionizing nuclear power plants. We don't need them. We haven't needed them. Probably have not needed them since the time I was born. Now, of course, this is a major issue. You're talking a multi-trillion-dollar global infrastructure change. And so this does hit the alarm bells at the National Security Council economics area. However, what is more serious to the national security? Keeping the status quo or letting ourselves go into a global ecosystem collapse and running out of fossil fuels and having massive rolling blackouts, not just in California, but globally. We have got to do something about this, and soon, and that's why we are advocating open hearings in the Congress. Other media, please.
There's a long answer for someone who's short on time.
Yes, sir.
I just want to know if anybody at the UN is looking into this.
I personally met with Boutros Ghali's wife, Aliyah Ghali, who said that her husband was quite concerned about this. This was in the 1990s. Since then, we know that there have been other people at the UN who've made inquiries. The problem is the UN has no mandate to deal with this. It needs to be given a mandate from its constituent members member nations, and I think that the public and the member nations need to ask that the United Nations get involved with this. This is an international peace issue and an international security issue, and it should be taken up by the UN Security Council, and of course we are recommending that as well. Yes, sir.
So I think my question is actually to Clifford Stone. You said that you had seen aliens on a craft that had crashed. I wondered if you could describe what they looked like.
I could, but it would probably take a whole lot of time. The reason I state that, when I got out in 1989, we had cataloged 57 different species. You have individuals that look very much like you and myself that could walk among us and you wouldn't even notice the difference, except for some of the things that they might be able to go ahead, even in a dark room, and touch an object and go ahead and identify what color that object might be. They would have a heightened sense of smell, sight, hearing. The situation is that you have various types of what we normally call grays. We didn't call them grays in the military, but you had at least 3 types of the grays. You had some that were much taller than we were. The unique thing that I'd like to point out for the most part is that the entities that we did catalog were in fact humanoid. Now this created a situation where the scientific community was trying to figure out why that would be the case, because you would expect that if life evolved on other planets, that they would take on some type of other being, so to speak, not necessarily look humanoid or be bipedal such as we are. But apparently we got quite a few of the species out there that are humanoid in appearance, and that creates a question that yet has to be answered by science.
Yes, and as I call on you, please state the news agency that you were with. Yes, ma'am.
Deanne Divis with United Press International. Could you please address the vehicle that there was a drawing displayed of? Why would this vehicle be on display at an air show? What is the power source that you are asserting is going to be so very useful? And how can you determine that this vehicle is not something that is being developed, by a government agency?
In fact, I think that was the testimony. This is an alien reproduction vehicle, and just to be clear, this means...
She fully, obviously didn't understand the story at all, and Greer just goes, yeah, I think that was the testimony. This is an alien reproduction vehicle. That's the point.
Means that it is based on advanced anti-gravity and zero-point energy propulsion systems. Those are the propulsion systems. They are being manufactured by a consortium of companies that include Lockheed Martin, Northrop, SAIC, and other corporations. They do have superluminal capacity, in other words, faster than the speed of light capacity. I think Mr. McCandish and other witnesses that he's identified could go into more of the technical physics of it. I'm just a country doctor from Virginia, I tell people. I mean, really. And but this is actually what is the reason it's called alien reproduction vehicle, is that it's based on the study of extraterrestrial vehicles, but it is manufactured by human.
Instead of that National Press Club, this is what should have been there. That's better.
Military intelligence, aerospace contracting arrangements, and this is very important. It means that we, Homo sapiens, have the ability to access this so-called zero.
I love that it's holding this frame. This is great.
Zero-point field of energy, which is the ambient field of energy from which all matter and energy is fluxing, and can access that energy and generate all the power we need to run this planet without fossil fuels or pollution.
This is the press conference we really needed.
Do you have any direct evidence, though, that this, we're talking about the same guy?
She asked, do you have any direct evidence? And Greer puts his ear down did this motherfucker just listen to the 20 people I just brought to the stand? Am I hearing this properly? Is this motherfucker questioning me?
Government that so appropriately named a snooper program Carnivore. So just because it's named the alien reproduction vehicle considering the history and the questions that have been existing for such a long time about flying saucers. I mean, do you know, is there any direct reason to believe that this is actually derived from technology? Any of the witnesses who can attest to that? And how would this, a propulsion system, a rocket engine doesn't necessarily translate into electricity. Can you elaborate on that?
The disdain in his frown while he's listening to some of these questions, hey, like the frown is just like, it's like he just can't believe he's even hearing this question. But he, you know, he holds it together. He tells them how it is.
Well, the first part of your question, I would say that the testimony of witnesses we have, some of whom are here, others that are not here, but they're in the briefing materials, is that they have studied, we have studied specifically extraterrestrial vehicles which have been retrieved. The breakthroughs in that research have led to applications that have led to the building of this and similar anti-gravity devices. And that, in fact, this can be proven in open testimony before Congress, and that is exactly what we are calling for. We have the witnesses to establish this, and they also have the documents and the specific details of the propulsion systems. But this is not a jet internal combustion system at all. It is actually kicked in by a type of electric power source, and it then accesses this ambient zero-point energy field that is responsible for all matter and energy existing. And
it's interesting as well how he's talking about, this press conference was an effort to try and get some of these people to go before Congress and basically get them in a hearing to testify under oath and do what we've seen over the last couple of years with Fravor, Grush, Tim Gallaudet, right? Like that's what Stephen Greer was trying to get to happen with these people in 2001. And some of the guys who have spoken here who have, brought some pretty interesting shit to the table, i.e. Mark McCandish with the flux liner drawing and his knowledge of like the government's reproduction vehicles, alien reproduction vehicles, and Carl Wolf, the guy who we looked at in yesterday's episode who saw the photos of alien bases on the moon. Both died. Both died after this. Mark McCandish was, to be fair, it was like 20 years later, but was suicided. Close to when we're starting to hear about hearings happening soon. And I believe Carl Wolf was hit by a bus or something like that. Something like that.
By special configurations and what have you, it causes a cancellation of mass inertia and an anti-gravity effect. And this is a complex technical discussion, which is probably beyond the scope of this conference, but we have materials in the briefing document that we can provide you with references to people who have studied the anti-gravity effect. As far back as certainly the 1950s. We have one witness who said that his family was connected to the RAND Corporation and that by the mid-1950s that more money had been spent on anti-gravity propulsion systems than the totality of the Manhattan Project. So yes, we can establish those elements. Other questions?
Thank you. My name is Murray Felsher. I publish a newsletter downstairs here called the Washington Remote Sensing Letter that deals with reconnaissance and surveillance of the Earth from space. My question is this. Since 1972, with the launch of Landsat 1, and now with the launch of commercial space imagery, there are some archived, I would say, upwards of 35 million photographs of the Earth from space. And not one of them has shown a flying saucer. Are you suggesting that these have been airbrushed out?
We're suggesting that there is a system before the public gets hold of anything that's off of a government-connected satellite. There is a compartmented operation that does indeed sanitize them from this type of evidence. And I think the testimony of the gentleman who was with the Defense Intelligence Agency, Mr. Maynard, Ms. Hare, and others would substantiate that. We have other witnesses who have been involved in projects where such items have been sanitized out. It could also be that if you did a thorough search, you might find a few that slipped through. We obviously haven't had the research dollars to go through all the millions of images that are cataloged to look for them, but we do know there's been a very thorough sanitizing of this. And people should not be naive about the extent to which covert programs using billions of our tax dollars have been able to effectively hide this. This is one of the sort of myths of both the media and the public. It's sort of a Pollyanna myth that we live in a society where such things could not be done. In fact, they are done, and we can prove that they have been done.
These entire proceedings here, and I'm wondering how your screening process went. Can you tell us a little bit about your satisfaction level with that?
Well, I'm very satisfied that these are genuine and good people who are speaking truthfully. Out of 400 people that I'm dealing with, not 20 times this number, have I been fooled? Yeah. I'm an emergency doctor. Let me say something. People come.
Let him say something. Let him finish.
To the emergency department with flank pain, writhing on a stretcher. What have they got? A kidney stone, right? Yeah. Well, some of them go into the bathroom, prick their finger, and squeeze blood into the water, the urine sample, to show that they have blood in their urine so they can get a narcotic injection. Now, have I been scammed as an emergency doctor who has I'm bright enough not to kind of know when I'm being scammed, but have I occasionally? Yeah. Is it possible? It's possible. Is it likely? No. And here's what's more important. You don't not treat or accept the testimony or the history of every patient that comes in with flank pain and assume that they're lying just because you've been scammed once or twice. This field, you make a very good point, is filled with hoaxes and scams and what have you. It doesn't mean, however, that all of it is. And in fact, what we're saying after 8 years of research, we have found the documents, the top secret witnesses, the insiders willing to testify under oath before Congress that this is true. Now, here's another key point. Some of the people who are in this witness pool, Mr. Sheehan, myself, and a couple of other attorneys, are members of state licensed professions. And what that means is that if we are perpetrating a hoax, we will lose our license to practice medicine, we will lose our license to practice law, because we'll be perpetrating a hoax upon the public. So what I would say to you is that the group of people before you are very credible, and the others whom we have identified are. We are not the CIA. We have not been able to do a $50,000 background check on each person. I'll give you that caveat. But we have done very serious interviews and vetting. And by the way, these people have presented their DD-214s, their defense forms, other documentation that show the two DD-214s and others that show that they were in the military at a certain place and a certain time. So we're very comfortable that, in fact, that the weight of the testimony will carry the day here and that this is real.
Yes, I had an insight, and it relates to your question. There have been tens of thousands of sightings and experiences from all over the world. Only one of them needs to be true. Because if only one of them is true, then the entire case, the non-reality of these sightings, falls apart.
That guy just like it's like that guy was just so G'd up and like just had to get up and say that. He had to get that off his chest.
That flow from such operations are null and void. What that means is, in legal theory, is that if it's an illegal enterprise, the agreements those that are entered into as a result of that illegal enterprise have no legal standing. So one of the things I would like to announce today is all of the men and women listening to this need to know they are free to speak. We are declaring all national security oaths on this subject null and void. They have flowed from illegal.
I don't know if Stephen has the authority to do that, but I like the idea and the ambition, and it is really like, if it was that simple, that is obviously what needs to happen. Why can't that happen?
Operations that has no standing constitutionally. My people, my mother's family, who fought in the American Revolution, were prisoner of war with the British to help found this country, did not fight and die to form the United States so that this kind of chicanery can go on. So these men are free to speak, and there can be no legal repercussions against them. We have legal counsel who will also support this theory, and we're taking this to other constitutional scholars. It is time for that game to end. It is time for a new era in the human experience. Yes.
There we go. Well, Heidi says when he prefaces with "I was a medical doctor," you know he's going to go on a rampage. Yeah, that's when you know Greer's getting fired up when he wants to tell you that he's a medical doctor, and that just wait a second and let him finish. And by the way, merch is coming soon. The merch is coming soon, I promise. And this may be on a t-shirt. Would you wear this? Would someone wear this? I think it's hilarious. Would you wear this? I want to know. There are a few things I wanted to cover before we wrap up here. Sammy says, I fell asleep. I'm gutted. It's 4:30 a.m. I clearly have to sort my priorities out. Yes, Sammy, you do. Lucky for you, though, the video will be up and available to watch. So you can go and watch it once that's all done. I'll go back and put chapters and anything I need to in the descriptions of these videos. Why is Lou gone dark? Sam, I would say probably because he has shown so many fake photos and just gets sledged eternally that he has either like given up or is sick of it or has realized that he's just a pawn in a Psy-Op, or maybe his operation is complete. Maybe his mission is done. Who knows? I want to connect via consciousness, but my ADHD seems to be blocking it. Start meditating, bro. Start meditating. I wonder what David Icke thinks of Greer. Will we ever see them on the same page? On the same stage? I would say David Icke probably doesn't like Stephen Greer because David Icke seems to not like anybody. Which is the only negative I would say about David. David is like a classic Englishman who just complains about everything. And I love him. I love David Icke. I love listening to him. But fuck, he's miserable. He just fucking whinges about everything and everyone. Even when somebody says something that you think like David Icke would agree with, you'd think like, oh yeah, surely David would be about that. Like he'd agree. He would be like, oh, you're just another puppet who can't see his head from his ass. It's like, fuck, David. I thought you would have, I thought you would have been about that. But no, complains. Let's move over to the other screen, I think. Yeah. It's really hard to keep track of your messages and reply to them afterwards because the chat's just too fast and I lose them. Anyway, let's jump over here. We'll let that catch up for a moment. So, as I said, we're going to watch a movie in Discord. If you haven't joined Discord, the link is below. I'll be streaming a movie in there soon. If you were here yesterday when we spanned the wheel, you would have seen that it landed on Arrival, but I went to Blockbuster, I went to Video Easy, I even went to Civic Video, and nobody had a VHS copy of Arrival. And I would never download a car, so, I actually don't know what to do about that one. So we're going to do a poll. We're going to do a poll on what movie we're going to watch. And what's the time? It's 1:08. You're going to have to give me like at least 10 minutes, maybe 15 until the movie begins. So, but that's time to get a coffee, get snacks, get whatever you need to do. What movie are we going to watch? So the choices are District 9, Men in Black, Independence Day, or Signs. And I can't actually add a fifth option, so I'll leave the Hunger Games out, but maybe we'll do that another day. The poll is up. You should see it there. I'm not going to vote. I'm happy to let you guys vote on this one. All good choices, though, I will say. Prawn Season, District 9. Yeah, I would love to watch District 9. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie. I feel, and like I said, I love rewatching the old stuff because even in movies, you sometimes look back and you're like, damn, there's like a little bit of truth in here maybe that when it came out, we didn't really know. But, given what we've learned now, you look back at some of this stuff and it's like, this director or this producer was read in. They were clued in. Signs is looking like it's going to win so far. I'll give it like another minute or so. We can hang out. We can chat shit for a little while this simmers. I also missed a super chat from Martin Walsh for $5. Says, Stephen Greer has been pushing disclosure for years. I do not understand why he hasn't been silenced. It's a good point, Martin, and thank you. I did sort of talk about this earlier in the stream. I raised that exact point, actually, that like it is strange. Stephen Greer has said publicly that he has a dead man switch, meaning that, you know, if he was to be killed, that things would be released to the public. I guess he's alluding to the fact that he has information that keeps him safe. But I don't know. I don't know if I buy that. I mean, Phil Schneider was talking about shit and he got killed. I mean, that information's still here and publicly available. We've watched it on the channel. And that's just one example, right? I think it's more likely that rather than kill him, they have infiltrated his circle and have just steered his narrative in a direction that they're at least happy with. Because I think like it's at a point now where like you can come out and talk about this stuff and it's already so kind of the door is open that like to some degree, they're just going to have to accept that people are talking about this stuff. Like people know that there's something going on. I think they're probably past that, but it's like, how far down the rabbit hole of like information are you revealing? There's probably like a cutoff, like a threshold on like what they're happy to accept and what they're not. And I think maybe he's been kind of, you know, somehow taken and turned in a direction of like, no, all aliens are good. No, they're all loving. We should accept all of them. They're all good. There is nothing bad about a non-human intelligence interacting with us. We should just accept them with open arms. Because that to me seems a little sus. Because saying there's no such thing as bad aliens is just like, I don't know. I find that hard to believe. And it's interesting that that is also the narrative that Chris Bledsoe talks about as well. That everything is good and that there is no bad. When in reality, he might just be experiencing one facet of the phenomenon, which could be many different things. He could be maybe only experiencing the good aliens, and there are also bad ones. Like, or he's being tricked by bad aliens masquerading as good to help, you know, to help people think that this is a good thing and invite them in, just like the Americans did allegedly under Eisenhower, invited them in, and then all of a sudden we are led by the nose via technology, and we're now at a stage where it seems like we're trying to integrate artificial intelligence with humans and become a hive mind, just like the Greys apparently are. If you kind of see what I'm getting at there. We're going to wrap this poll up. We're going to be watching Signs in Discord. Thank you all for hanging out. I hope you've had fun. Maggie, thank you for the $2. I appreciate the support. Can we actually jump over here? Yeah, we can. No, but the music cuts off. That's a shame. Well, I'll give you a chance to say goodbye to Suki. I don't think you're going to get much from her right now. She's pretty tired, but she'll be watching Signs with us. And thank you guys for hanging out. Like I said, probably won't be any streams for a couple of days. Maybe a video, maybe. But if not, I'll probably be back on Thursday or the weekend. So until then, take care. Be good. Be kind.
Say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.